Last week, Minister of Finance and National Planning, Dr. K30.6, presented a 217 billion kwacha budget. One of the highlights of this budget is an exponential increase in CDF from 30 million to 36.1 million. Reports are that the CDF is underutilized, and that's the reason for why we ask, why must we increase CDF annually when it's not properly being utilized? Minister of Local Government and Rural Development, Honorable Garry Nkombo, agreed to speak with me on this day. Thank you so much for joining me. My name is Andrew Mwanza. Honorable Minister, thank you so much for joining us on this day tonight.
You are most welcome, and thank you for having me, Andrew.
The biggest subject on people's lips, Minister, is the presented budget that the Minister of Finance did present. We did see an exponential increase in this budget from $177 billion kwacha to 217 billion. It is very special because it comes at a backdrop of severe drought and power shortages in the country. How special for you as an administration is this budget?
Let me just begin by stating that the country, the nation, needs to be reminded that the UPND government, under the leadership of our president, Mr. Hakainde Hichilema, is one government that has not been in any doubt injected money into people. This is a fact, and we haven't just done the numbers, but we could, as a matter of fact, go somewhere close to Dr. Kaunda's time, where we had programs that are life-saving, which include the short and long-term, free education policy, community development programs, the Constituency Development Fund, for which I think you are here to discuss. We believe that this government has put the money where the mouth is. And so 217 billion kwacha in a stressful year, where we are focusing more on drought resistance programs. We think that it's a very special year because it's a year that has taught us many lessons, that we cannot longer depend on hydropower generation. And so with the current situation, the hardships at hand, this budget to us is an innovative budget that seeks to deal with the issue of climatic changes once and for all, in terms of preparedness, in terms of adaptation, in terms of resilience. And so as we get on into this discussion, and when we come to the compact of the ministry that I'm privileged to run, I can try and explain how we have biased our thinking and our aspiration to deal with humanity while dealing with the issue of climate resilience, climate adaptation, as well as climate adaptation resilience.
Yeah. Your ministry is a key beneficiary of a huge portion of allocation to this budget. Part of your flagship program as an administration is the CDF. You've exponentially increased CDF from 2021 up until in this budget from 1.6 million. Now we're speaking 36.1 million in this particular budget.
Constituency, per annum.
Per annum?
Yes, we must put it in the correct context, because if you simply say 36.1 without saying per constituency per annum, people may not understand the exponential increase in this particular.
The question is, why do you see the need to increase CDF annually?
Before I get to that point, I think we must not also forget the fact that under this ministry that I'm privileged to run, we have the Local Authority Equalization Fund. The Local Authority Equalization Fund has also continued to increase, responding to the challenges that most local authorities were facing in the past, of paying salaries, of dealing with projects. And as you know, at a certain point, because of the increase of the Constituency Development Fund, the 20% of the Local Authority Equalization Fund had to be withdrawn, for lack of a better term, in order to deal with the outcry of the councillors, elected officials who had been serving pro bono, free of charge, to the nation to attend to their requirements. That was a very innovative idea by the Ministry of Finance and the President, to say now that we have increased the CDF from the 1.6 million that you're talking about over the years to now 36.1, the 20% of the local authority equalization fund did not compare to what this kind of increase was going to achieve in meeting the interests and the aspirations of our people. So the councillors were agitating because they were doing work for free, and that part of that 20% that was going to capital projects in the local authorities had to be diverted to be able to pay the councillors so that at least we put a smile on their faces. 2,884 councillors who were working free of charge are today on a payroll of at least 3,000 kwacha, more than it was before. So 6,000 kwacha, it becomes sort of a decent take home for them to perform the functions of representing people, the functions of communicating the societal needs to central government become worthwhile. Now, coming to the issue of the CDF. The increase of the CDF from what it was last year to what it is today is a firm belief, a demonstration of a firm belief that this government is for the people. Remember, we are dealing with the issue of decentralization. Since the year 1964, every successive government used to talk about decentralizing as a good way of getting the people participation in the running of their interests and aspirations or their affairs, in the identification of the local requirements. So we, through the leadership of our President Hakainde Hichilema, decided to now take the work of that decentralization talk by first of all devolving functions that were sitting in other ministries here in Lusaka and at the province to the local authority, to the councils. You know that most of the livestock services have been devolved, sporting services devolved, some community services devolved to the local authority, to the councils. That means that there is a recognition by the government that people must participate at district and sub-district structure level so that they can actually be answered to their actual needs. And this is how we decided to actualize the Local Government Act provision of establishing the WDCs. You remember, the organ called WDC was sitting in our statutes for a long, long time, but it was not formed. It is this government, under the President, Mr. Hakainde Hichilema, who decided let's now actualize the law, because as you know, we boast and we treasure ourselves for following the rule of law. That is one of the yardsticks. That is one of the benchmarks that we use to campaign to get the favor of the people to vote for us, to bring back sanity, to follow the laws that are established for society to run. So the WDC, that small organ of political order, was established in order to help the councillor, the council, the MP, the minister, the president, to identify the requirements of people at sub-district level before decisions were made in Lusaka. Today, I can tell you, as a result of that, Andrew, the statistic that I can give you now is that over a period of 2 years plus, shy of 3, we, through this devolution of not only functions, but also of money itself going to be managed at district level, has seen the establishment of a total, as of July this year, 172 maternity annexes that have been constructed and 13 of them rehabilitated. That's not a small number. And because this is the president's, priority, that no woman must give birth in unsanitary conditions. These 172 maternity wings are fully fledged with water, running water, which was not there before, with also electricity, and in most cases solar in the rural areas. We have procured, and this is very phenomenal. Please mark this word, that we have procured 367,749 school desks. Now, just do your simple mathematics, multiply that by 2 or 3 at the most. 3 children sitting on one desk. What does that tell you about how the learning environment was before? These are the things that, Andrew, people may not treasure quite a lot. That what does it take to sit on a desk anyway? When I went to school, I sat on a desk throughout my learning experience, from grade 1 through to the University of Zambia when I graduated in 1988. And it's because of that, the learning environment was all right, that I managed to become who I am today, to become a minister, to become an educated person. So this is something that was lacking from before, to sanitize the learning environment. If you go to children now today who were sitting on the floor, and not those of us who grew up in the dark years, who did not know what it means to sit on a desk, they will tell you that even the performance rate for these children is going to improve. Over and above these 367 desks, we rehabilitated. These were desks that were broken and thrown away in the backyard of every school. 8,116 desks that were rehabilitated. If you multiply this by 3, again it will give you somewhere in the neighborhood of 24,000 children sitting on the floor, yet again. We have done 338 washer facilities in schools that we've constructed, and washer basically means water and sanitation. We have done 250 washer facilities in the constructed health posts, and we have rehabilitated 73. We have also managed to rehabilitate washer stations at bus stations, at markets. All right? What that tells you is that the traveling public, the trading public, are there now to proudly go into a toilet facility without having to close their eyes. Because we have made sure that all bus stations, all markets are equipped with toilets that have running water. That spells decency.
Honorable Minister, in unlocking the CDF, I remember very vividly that there were a number of workshops that the President and yourselves conducted to ensure that CDF is utilized properly.
Yes.
I'd like to find out whether the bottlenecks around CDF have been dealt with, and how different now is it? Because I think also another issue that we are getting is that
good question.
For any project to offshoot,
good question.
You need to append a signature. Someone from Wembesh should come all the way to Lusaka to get a signature from the
Yes,
minister.
yes. I'm glad you're actually answering the question on my behalf, because some of the bottlenecks, it's a good question that you've asked, and the determination of whether or not this program is successful sits right at the face of the challenges, okay, and the successes of this program. The challenges were many, but we have reduced them. One of the challenges is, as you put it, that the bureaucracy of approval had to come all the way from Kaputa. And by the way, that's the way it was even before. From the time the Constituency Development Fund was established, poultry as it may have been, at 1.6 million kwacha, the applications had to come from Kaputa, from Chiyengi, from Shangombo, from Ilkelengi, from Chama. They had to come all the way here to this desk for approval for so little money. That became one of the biggest bottlenecks, which we resolved instantly. The moment we saw that this is not working against the time that we have to deliver, this minister here, under the guidance of the President, decided that I was going to relinquish the signing authority and delegate it to the province. So now, all the applications for the projects in Southern Province just go to Choma. The provincial local government officer has been now charged with the responsibility of approvals. We didn't stop there, Andrew. We also, and I've used Southern Province as an example. For Central, Kawe is approving. For Muchinga, Chinsali is approving. For Northwestern, Solwezi is approving. For Eastern Province, Chipata is approving. Now, in order to circumvent all these what may be delays in the approval process, we also put another caveat in there to say that when a a project is submitted to the PLGO, once it's done, it's processed through the WDC, through the CDFC, all the way to the province, from the date of the delivery of this application, which is stamped, if the PLGO does not do his job within 14 days to approve or disapprove of the project, that project will be deemed as having been approved, and that work can start. So that basically treats the ill that we had of time management. So we have done that. We have challenges in the law. The Public Procurement Act continues to remain a problem because of many factors. The law and also the statutory instrument that was signed that speaks to, is it called e-procurement? I think it's called e-procurement. I'll get the right nomenclature just now. Has created problems in that the idea of procuring electronically, good as it sounds, because the applications of contracts do not come with the face of Andrew Mansa or Garry Nkombo. They go through a mill, and there's an electronic system that is devised in order to come out with who was to win. We experienced a problem, we still continue to experience a problem. Fortunately, the same law for procurement does provide for another form of procurement, okay, which is called single sourcing. Now, we can't all single source. So in that area, I can confirm that we still have a little problem of the e-procurement system. And we are on it, we are working on it. The most that can happen is to just repeal that law if we continue to prove that it's creating delays. And in doing that, I want you to also understand that the human factor jets in as well, that sometimes when some people have vested interests, and I'm talking about the people who run procurement,
yep.
When they have a vested interest, they are going to use the e-platform for procurement as a reason why things are delaying, if you understand what I mean. If they have an interest to make sure that this contract goes to this person, they will use this same e-system of procurement as a way to delay the process. That's a matter that we are actively looking at. The Public Finance Management Act has also been a little bit of a challenge to us because the law as it sits, approvals for expenditure must go to the Secretary to Treasury. Fortunately, steps are being made for those approvals to be decentralized down to the province. The issue of the contract approvals, as the law stands, it is the Attorney General that approves all contracts. And even that is back to back or on all fours with how we devolved my authority to the PLGO to sign. Even the Attorney General at this point in time, we are working towards making a template of a contract, meaning a standard contract that does not have too much jargon for anyone to start perusing through to take to the Attorney General, that they just fill in the blanks in order for things to move a lot faster. So we have those challenges which we are addressing, but we are still in a firm belief that CDF is completely transformational. We believe that CDF is going to touch the lives of our people positively. We believe that it is going to uplift the living standards of our people in the short and the long run, and even in the midterm. And how do I mean? Today, we boast of having taken children to school and paid for their bursaries. Okay? This is something that only the Kenneth Kaunda government had done. Over and above another flagship program of the free education policy, the boarding school facilities. Today, there's no excuse that a parent has got no money to support a child to go to school because the government has decided to pay that bill. And this is happening in the face of many things, Andrew, that many people may be complaining about, such as the cost of fuel as it was before, people have complained. Those who made sure that they subsidized on the cost of fuel. And I want to say this slowly so that even the one who's doubting may now understand. I have a car, you have a car.
We're coming to that, Minister, you know, in a short while. Even as your Minister of Finance, even as our Minister of Finance was presenting the budget, and when you were speaking to the issue of CDF, he did warn, you know, councils to be very careful in terms of how they address these issues around, you know, CDF, because it seems that they've been the ones that have been delaying, you know, projects from, you know, from taking off. I don't know how you're dealing with this, but also another concern that came up when you increase CDF says, look, these are councils that only managed, you know, a small amount of money, 1.6 million, that are managing over 30 million now. How have you capacitated these councils?
Okay, thank you. I think the minister's warning was extremely timely. Okay, and I'll explain to you what I explained, although I may not have gone into depth. I explained that one of the problems that we have is the human factor. But because of the nature of who I am, I didn't want to go into the detail of who these humans are. But I will say it now that you pushed me to the corner about the warning that the minister gave to the local authority employees. These include the backstops at the town clerk or the council secretary, because they're the chief executive of, and they're the ones who run the day-to-day administration of all council affairs, including CDF. So the backstops at them as their supervisor. But as my supervisor to the president, the buck stops at me. So if the CDF does not work well, the president will exert the heat on me. That failure will be my failure, the failure of the CS. The failure of the procurement officer will be the failure of the CF. So it's a whole chain reaction. My failure would be the failure of the president, and the president doesn't want that. So it is a whole chain of responsibility. When the minister said, I'm giving a warning for the expedient, prudent utilization of the CDF, he meant his word. Because there are cases where, I'll give you an example, for Kafue, as an example. And I don't mean to victimize Kafue, because this is a very vivid example that I can give. That they didn't procure anything because the procurement officer said, I'm not familiar with the the name keeps going, the e-procurement system. So, is that an excuse? If you are not familiar, you can go to the next council that is familiar. But someone decided to just sit. And the secretary of the council also just said, oh, he's not familiar, therefore work does not move. Is that acceptable? The answer is no. So the warning that the minister gave was to all of us who are involved in this particular assignment, that if the council fails, it is the minister who has failed. And because of that, I would say
this is a complaint across the country.
Am I?
This is a complaint across the country.
Yes. And you also clubbed it with the fact that people had argued that there was no capacity in the council, and that what have we done in order to capacitate the council. If you look into the establishment of the council in the last 2 years, you'll see that maybe next to nurses or teachers, the Ministry of Local Government is the one that has employed the third largest number of people, technocrats, because even as I'm talking to you now, there's an advert that is running that is getting people who are competent to come and help to make this program a success. You know, for instance, in certain councils, we found that there were no competent structural engineers. So in order to address this, we couldn't say the money will remain at Lusaka and will drip feed you because you don't have an engineer. We've decided to fill those establishments with the correct people to run the affairs of those departments, including architects, including planners, including engineers, including town clerks. Those who are not competent have left. And we are quite confident ourselves that the crop of people that we inherited and those that we have put in addition are together going to work seamlessly to make sure that these programs work. And in answering you in maybe one bullet short is that many councils have recorded a huge success on CDF. Okay? Many. and a few have not. You must now take time to study which are these councils. The human factor also includes, Andrew, the fact that politicians, my kind, have also been a hindrance, interfering. I'll explain to you why and how. The how is that because CDF, even at the time when it was small, at 1.6, if a councillor gets a borehole in their ward, the MP gets a borehole in their constituency, it becomes a springboard for them to say, I have done this. And this has been basically the discomfort that has been going on between this office and the office of my colleagues, who some believe if they are not there in the meeting, no decisions should be made. Now, time will not stand. It will keep moving. Those are some of the challenges. You ask me how. That's what I mean. Some MPs will say, as long as I'm not in the meeting, we will not decide which projects we're going to fund. And yet, the rules are very clear. Clear that the identification of what project to fund is the baby of the WDCs, the Ward Development Committee, who feed into the Constituent Development Committee where the MP sits. But we've had all these challenges where sometimes MPs are overriding and they would like to wait, even in cases where, Andrew, a project is ready for commissioning. And some MPs will say, you will not commission unless I'm there myself to give a speech of how good an MP I am. So it has always been used as a springboard for people to patronize constituencies.
Would you say that these are some of the issues that have led to the underutilization of the CDF? Because
it's one of the many. It is one of the many.
As you announced, is around 58%.
It's one of the many. It's one of the many, but look, in the first year, we struggled a lot in terms of percentage because we were still learning. We remember it's in 2022 that we established the WDCs. So half of the 2022 year went in forming this structure called WDCs. By the time they started identifying the projects and going on into the year was almost finished. When we went into the second year, we started perfecting our arts, addressing, sorting these things one by one. Is the law an impediment? We sort it. Is the human factor an impediment? We are sorting it. And part of the sorting sits in that warning that today I am privileged to remain the Minister of Local Government at 58% average performance. I think the President has been very kind because in my own ratings, that is average or below expectation. And so when the Minister said that, for instance, he said, those councils that have not bought yellow machines to deal with the rural connectivity, of the 36.1 million, you were lamenting of the fact that you didn't have lubricant, fuel, service money for these machines. Now we have dedicated 3 million plus for you to deal with the service of the machines, for you to deal with the lubrication, for you to deal with the fuels. And he went further, the minister, by saying, we encourage all of you to buy yellow machines, a set of road making equipment. And please, Andrew, allow me just to make a quick point. I'll take an extra minute on this. We told our councils, buy equipment, a set of 8. A grader, motor grader, a compactor, a water bowser, a front-end loader, excavator where possible, and low bed to move the equipment around as a barest minimum for you to be able to fix the roads. Many bought, I would say more than 80 councils bought. That's just about half. Then these vehicles were packed because there was no fuel. That was in the budget. Now we've provided for it. Before, Andrew, to do a 20-kilometer road would cost in excess of maybe 60 million kwacha. I stand to be corrected. Why? Because you had to then advertise here in the ministry for a person who's doing a road in Chembe, all right? Chembe constituency. contracted here, given a down payment here, they mobilize to go that side, they get 60 million kwacha for a 20-kilometer stretch. It was wasteful. Today, Chembe have got a set of this equipment that is going to last for 30 years. Those Caterpillar equipment that is most councils now, the last I saw one brand new one, I was in grade 3, under roads department. Today, all councils are boasting of having their own. So to do periodic maintenance is even now going to be out of fashion. It will not be periodic, it will be continuous, because they will have the machine, they will have the laterite is there, they will have now the fuel, and there's no excuse. So for those who have not bought, I want to take advantage of this platform to encourage you now to also buy. But the minister did not stop there. The minister said, those of you who have not bought, go and hire next door. It is still cheaper to hire next door than for you to go the old ways of getting a contractor in Osaka. He doesn't have a grader. Once you contract him, then he runs to ZNS or to a private Chinese contractor to hire a grader. That price of hire is topped up on the cost of building the road. And that's why this ministry found itself, when I took office and flipped the pages, Andrew, I found that there was a procurement of plus or minus 13 billion kwacha of roads, rural roads. It was a cash cow, this ministry. This is where they were milking the money from those who were there before us. They were milking this government from this ministry. Of that 13.0 procurement, they had actually contracted up to 7 billion kwacha loan. And when we went to see, okay, this 7 billion that you are claiming in what they call interim payment certificates, we want to go and see the roads that you repaired. The story is sad because of the fact that these rural roads get washed away perennially when there's above normal rainfall. You would not even tell that there was once a grader that passed here because the rain would have washed away the road. But in the meantime, 200 million kwacha had been paid to this one individual for doing this road, which next year again they will stand in line to say, therefore, but today, there will be nothing like that. There will be no 7 billion kwacha that this ministry is going to owe anyone anymore, because the councils now are capacitated. You're talking about the issue of capacitation. For them to own a set of road rehabilitating or earth-moving equipment, whether one likes it or not, that is the definition of capacitation.
Speaking about cash cow, the people still feel and think that your ministry is a cash cow for the UPND cadres.
Tell me
They
about
say
it.
that the CDF, much of the contracts have been given to party cadres belonging to your party, the UPND. I'm sure you've heard of these allegations even before the floor of the House. Members of Parliament come on the platform to allege.
In all honesty, I have heard complaints. And unfortunately, and I want to say this very clearly, unfortunately, Andrew, the complaint is back to back. Because I'm the minister who's sitting here. This country is a multi-party democracy. I deal with PF MPs. There's one seated right over there right now as I'm speaking to you, waiting to discuss with me. I deal with UPND MPs. I deal with independent MPs. Just as the case was when they were electing the WDCs. I want you to mark my words very clearly. And this is a sad story, which I cannot say yes to or no to. But I can only confirm that I've heard those complaints. At formation of the WDCs, where the MP was a PF, it went without saying that the majority of the councillors were PF. It went without saying that the campaign to get the WDC chairpersons, because the election of a WDC or any election is a political process, remember. Most of the people who won as WDCs were those who were dear to the party that won in that constituency. Are you understanding what I'm saying? So because they were dear to the party, to the extent that some of them who became WDC chairmen were ward chairmen. Some of them that became Constituency Development Fund chairman. were the constituent chairman of that given, and these chairmen are political people, political beings. And so even when it comes now to selection of, I'll give you an example. In the constituency that X that I want to name, I was told, Minister, here's a list of beneficiaries from the cooperatives. All these are PF members. There's no single UPND, so it doesn't even show that we won. This is on the case of Mpika. And I picked the phone. I called my colleague, the MP from Mpika. I've got this allegation. Fortunately, he was able to water down that argument that out of maybe the 15 cooperatives that had won, 3, he proved to me that they were members of UPND. When you flip the coin, the PF people who also complained to say, where Nkombo is the MP, all the councillors are UPND. As PF or other those who don't share the interest are crowded out, those complaints keep coming. It goes the same way with the contractors. Unfortunately, I was just lamenting about what I would call maybe the delay or defective nature of the e-procurement system. Under the e-procurement system, how can the system know that this is a PF and this is a UPND?
Very difficult to know.
This is the whole thing. But don't forget that in terms of cooperatives, which is what the example I've given you, there's no e-selection. It is selecting manually, physically, by looking at the composition of the cooperatives. In the case of loans, it is also manually. Look at the proposal. Look at the individual involved. Is he capable of paying? In the case of contracts, this is why I took time to explain to you, I've not heard that all contracts are going to UPND, because there's this sorry, my memory is...
E-procurement system.
Yeah, the e-payment, the e-contract system, the e-procurement system is not an easy one. And what I mean is that whoever wins, I can tell you now, the most complaints that I've got is that the e-system of procurement has excluded most of us UPND. Why? Because there's a clause in there of years of experience. Now, you remember that during the time of Patriotic Front, it was in their manifesto that all government workers must be subscribers to PF. All contractors, therefore, were PF. So if you were known not to be a PF, you don't get a contract. It is in their manifesto, the Patriotic Front. So when we took office, it went without saying that Nkombo, who did not do business with government at that time, did not have the required 3-year experience. So it left most of the UPND outside. So I'm surprised that in your submission, you're actually saying the contracts are all going to UPND. There may be isolated cases of that, but let me put it to you now in more clear way. With us, this government that you're experiencing, we do not care. And it's not embedded anywhere in our doctrines that you have to be a PF or a UPND to enjoy government business. Ours is to make sure that you deliver on time, you deliver at the right price, you deliver a quality service. Whether you come from Mars, you come from the moon, you come from Jupiter, you are PF, you are Socialist Party, you are UPND, as long as you can deliver a quality product and you are a citizen of this country, we shall hamba now. We will work together. We shall work with you, whether you are a PF or not. So this whole allegation, I can tell you I've heard about it, but I've not been able to substantiate it in terms of contract award.
Yeah. I was with the PF president, quote-unquote, Mao Sampa, who on the show just 2 days ago told me that most of the councils, you know, in fact, is agreeing with you that most of the people that are getting these contracts are Patriotic Front, you know, people, and these are people that used to get contracts under their leadership when they were in office. But another issue that has come up is the initiative that you are calling a safety net to be able to address the challenges that our people are passing through, especially amidst a drought and amidst these harsh economic times. You're calling it cash for work. Others argue that this has been in existence for so many years. It was just, they used to call it piecework under the councils, where you work and then they give you money. But explain to us, Minister, on how this cash for work project is working under this administration and what you're trying to achieve at the end of the day.
Okay. First of all, I am surprised because this Cash for Work initiative is the very first from the time of Adam and Eve. So I'm surprised that there are people who are saying it has always been there. It means that they're just expert at criticism. Let me explain to you. This is a drought response mechanism or strategy that this government has decided to embark upon. And it took our president advising the Minister of Finance to convince Parliament to do a variation of the 2024 budget. Never happened before. And this is the reason why, Andrew, the president, during his address, was extremely clear in how grateful he was for the members of Parliament from both divides to agree to vary the 2024 budget in order for us to accommodate the devastating, debilitating effect of the drought that we are facing. This is the worst drought, using the president's own word, that we have experienced in living memory. That's what he said. So this is not business as usual for someone to trivialize it and say, now, my council will pass some piecework called casual daily employees. It may be as they want to think, but today we varied up to 2 billion kwacha, not million, Andrew, billion kwacha, to serve the 84 districts that have been devastated and debilitated by the effects of drought. Now, we're talking about beneficiaries of up to 15,000 people in the case of K30.6, which I've taken as an example because I remember that figure correctly. Since when did the council employ people up to even 300? I'm talking about 15,000 people to do some manual work of some kind in public areas in order for them to get $600 every 10 days in order to help them buy a bag of minimum. That is huge relief. Whether you like it or not, whether you want to trivialize it or not, the person there who did not yield any crop, the person there who has been hit by the effect of the escalating price of the maize meal, bunga, as a result of the demand, not only locally, but also internationally. This time, for a long time, Andrew, this government and the governments before have had to import maize into the country to define how difficult the situation is. Okay? So, if someone will say, kaidi na kumakanzo, kuchoka kudala na kudala, they are giving piecework, I think they are trivializing the matter. They are trivializing the matter. When time for posterity judgment comes, I'm sure I'll be on the right side of the divide. Because this actually, I dread to think what other governments would have done in the face of this challenge that we have.
You seem to be having a lot of brilliant ideas when you're in opposition.
Even now.
Garry Nkombo.
Even now.
On the economy, on electricity, you seem to be having brilliant ideas. And now people are asking, where have those ideas gone? And many are making reference to the idea of building a basin. You had actually made, you were before the National Assembly, and you made a point that all we need to do to deal with this issue of load shedding is to be able to build a canal that is going to connect the Chembe River, water flowing into
the Wapula River, from Chembe, yes.
From Chembe to Kafiwa River. Now we don't hear you say those things when you're in government, and your government now, is load shedding people for 4 days in some areas.
Okay. before I come to the issue of the inter-water basin exchange, I would like you to look at this. Maybe you can zoom into this picture here. This is the Kariba Dam. This is the Kariba Dam. Ever since I was born, I've never seen the flow of the Kariba Dam. It's showing here. So yes, I did say those things, and I'm still accountable to what I said. I'm fully accountable to what I said, because this issue of the trans-basin water exchange sits in the fact that there has been a study that happened back in the year 1994, 95, 96, when the late Simon Zukas was the Minister of Agriculture. And all that thing is sitting in this proposal. You may want to look at it. Yes, of course, I have heard not only comments, but actually comments to ridicule the idea that what was he talking about? This is what I'm talking about. This is a document that has got correspondence about the feasibility of having this. It began as a way of dealing with the irrigation of crop in Zambia, to deal with the issue of hunger. Because Kafue River, as you may want to know, and those who may not know, must now know that it's the only river that we have that is not shared with other countries. Okay? It is the one river that is not part of the trans-water boundary. Like Zambezi, which is shared with Zimbabwe, Namibia, Botswana, and to the Kaborabasa in Mozambique. Kafue River is our river. And the whole idea for those who were there before us to do the inter-basin water transfer is that it is possible to do this by connecting Luapula River, which in this document I can state to you is very clear that Luapula River, and I don't mean to demean anybody, because Luapula River is ours. Remember, all the power generation, 95% of the power generation is coming from the Zambezi and the Kafue River to power the entire country, and sometimes when we have excess for export. Luapula River, which becomes Lualaba River once it crosses into the Congo, comes from the Bangweulu swamps. It comes from the Bangweulu swamps. It also, I think, has a connection or parentage from the Mweru and Tipa. Those are our water areas. Now, this is what I was talking about. If you can zoom onto this country map, this white you see here is the pedicle, the Congolese pedicle, from Mufulira, Mukambo to Chembe. Across this pedicle to the point where we hit Kafue River here is only 75 kilometers. In fact, in my debate, I'd said 115. I had not got the facts right. It's only 75 kilometers long. The other thing I had not read about this document is that the Chembe River, sorry, the Luapula River, as a matter of fact, is at a lower altitude than the Kafue River. So yes, the canal could work, but it requires to be forced by pumping. And what I know now can work, after having studied this document more deeply, is actually pipes. 75 kilometers, like from 10 miles to Kafue. People have dredged rivers, Andrew, for more than 1,000 kilometers. Look at the Nile. The Nile in Egypt.
Is your government going to do this?
Once the stress is over, this is on the table. That's why you found it on this table. It's on the table. But right now, we are dealing. Sorry?
Have they bought into the idea?
This is a bankable idea, but it requires consultation. Let me tell you, in 1996, there is a letter here, which you can pick up, that was done by Simon Zukas and responded by then the governor of the Katanga. The letters are all here. Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Ministry of Agriculture. There are correspondences there to accept the Congolese Pedico to be used for this inter-river basin transfer. It is here. This is a letter that was signed by the acting permanent secretary at that time, Mr. Katai. This is the letter that was signed by Mr. Simon Zukas, a letter that was signed by then the Congolese consul is here. His name is Nyamweri Kwemu Wazambali. It is all here. So this is a living idea. And to ridicule this does not pay a dividend. Instead, we must say, Nkombo's idea, how can we all rally around this thing so that we accept that some of the water that is a bit dormant can be used for water generation. Others have argued. Not long ago, there was, Andrew, a consultative meeting in Mansa when pronouncements have been made about this water, inter-basin water exchange. People from Luapula called a meeting in Mansa where they sat to deliberate on whether this is a workable idea or whether they should share the water. Here's my plea. When Zambezi River was dumped to make Kariba, those people who some were sent to Sichifulo, displaced to Sichifulo to create the Kariba Dam, did not die in vain. They died, some of them went under that water body in order to supply electricity to the mines. The mines which are making this economy run. It is from those people. Similarly, the people, our brothers from Luapula, must be positive about such an idea. Yes, one can argue to say, why don't we make a power station? It is okay. It is also fine. But the investment that goes into a power station compared to putting a big pipe to move water from Luapula River into the Kafue is so much less.
As we close, Minister, it's been 2 years of this government in office.
2 years plus.
2 years plus, actually.
Running to 3.
You clocked 3 years in August of this year. The cost of living is unprecedentedly high. The price of fuel is very high, double the amount that you found it at. Load shedding is unprecedented. Everything has gone high, Minister. People are asking, what are you fixing?
Let me just say it in much simpler terms for everyone to understand. There is no social fixing that can happen outside an economic fixing. You can't put the cat or chikochikara before the horse. The horse or ngombe, they come before the skochikara. There's simply no way that you can move anything if you put the cat before the horse. Which is the horse now? It is the economy. Yes, at the time we took over this economy, it was growing at -3%. These are figures that people may not want to know, maybe actually -4%.
It's cheap fuel. It's cheap.
I'm coming to that. I'm coming to that. I want you to know that fuel was not cheap. And the argument I can give is that those who were there before us had even made a pledge that the fuel was going to be 5 kwacha per liter. Right or wrong? But the fuel cost in this world remains what it is. It's now that we decided to face the realities of life. One reality is that from the time we took office, we do not owe people from fuel arrears. I'm sure you know that. And yet, we took an $800 million debt on what you are calling cheap fuel. The fuel was cheaper. My foot, Andrew. What is something cheap when you haven't paid for it? Is the question we must ask ourselves. If you give me a nice jacket, it costs probably 4,000 kwacha. And you say, give me, I take it, I wear it, I use it, I take it to the laundry, it fades, it finishes, and I haven't paid you for your jacket. Will the next person that comes to you say, after all, Andrew's jacket was cheaper? No. That jacket was expensive. It was not only expensive, it was not paid for. The fact that instead of using money, the $800 million that we inherited as a fuel debt to few individuals, Andrew, that money, if we had not done it, and I'll come back to the argument that you nearly stopped me as I close, that the issue of fuel is important. No one wants to downplay it. But I think the issue of taking children to school, all the children, is much more important than the price of fuel.
You can't do double.
You can't put the cart before the horse. So you have to get the economy running first. You have to have disposable income. That's what, when an economy is growing, there are more jobs, there's more income. You know, let me say it this way, and I pray I'm not misunderstood. Do you know how much a bottle of Coca-Cola is in Angola?
I know how much it is in Zambia.
You don't know?
I know how much it is in Zambia.
How much is it in Zambia?
It's 20 kwacha. 20
kwacha. In Angola, a bottle of Coca-Cola is $10. How much is that?
About 250 kwacha.
One bottle of Coca-Cola. Thank you for answering that. Now, the cost of producing a bag of maize, it has variables, isn't it? The cost of seed, the cost of fertilizer, the cost of labor.
Transportation.
When you produce a bag of Milllion, it may be produced, say, at 200 kwacha. Okay? That is the actual cost. The remedy to people affording this is to increase economic activities, for the people to do much more transactions, to make money, either through hard work, skills, training, like we are training our people, so that you have disposable income to buy this. On the other side, it's production. Because the cost of anything is a function of demand and supply. If you have something in bulk, chances are that the price will start cascading. So I do agree that we are living in times that are not so easy. And those who may be saying, okay, this is what it is. Yes, call it what it is. What's your alternative? Other than growing the economy first. I bet my last kwacha. There is no other solution rather than to build the economy first, and it's darkest before dawn. Already, you know that Copperbelt is come alive. Is that disputable to you, Andrew? Or to the viewers, the listeners? The mines that were closed, they're now open. The people who were supplying stuff there are now getting some disposable income. And it's a spiral effect. All right? Before, that whole place was dead. 28 Shaft in Luansha, it had been dead for 25 years. And there were presidents, it closed during Chiluba. Then came the late Manawasa. Then came the late Rupia Banda. Then came the late Michael Sata. Then came the living Edgar Lungu. 5 presidents, 5. It took Mr. Hichilema 1 year and a half. That 28 shaft is open. They've almost finished pumping water. It will come alive. The people of Luansha are no longer going to start feeling stigmatized because they'll be waking up in the morning to go to work. So if you went to Luansha and say, UPND, Paribe Vamene Vachita, you are risking yourself. If you go to Mufurira and Nkana here, Nkana constituency, after the reopening of Mopani, and you say, Paribe Vamene Vachita, you're risking yourself. Risking of what? Of being labeled ignorant. KCM is open. And a lot of other things in terms of foreign direct investment is happening. That will translate into jobs. Once it translates into jobs, people will have disposable income. They'll be able to afford things to buy.
Minister, thank you so much for speaking with us.
My pleasure. Thank you.